Sports Professor Rick Horrow, the trillion-dollar business of sports. It's beyond the scoreboard. We go behind that business: law, marketing, deal-making, culture, philanthropy. Best week of the year if you're business folks. People come out of the woodwork to take credit for this week. Super Bowl 53. Who's playing? We all know who's playing. It's the old guard, Tom Brady, and the new guard, Sean McVay, and the upstart upstart Rams, who are moving into their new stadium in the next 2 years with a great team and a great legacy. How about all of that? But we'll talk about that as well. Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. If you want to look at all of the issues relative to a freezing cold Super Bowl, look at CSN Washington and Rick Horrow at Rick Horrow, horrorsports.com. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Look at us on Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, iTunes feeds. All of that stuff relative to one thing. It is time for the Super Bowl business. It's cold, by the way. It'll get colder. I'll be here all week, and I'm a Floridian, and we kind of forgot that Atlanta still has the opportunity to be cold. Remember the last Super Bowl here at the old Georgia Dome? A huge ice storm, which paralyzed the city. Not as bad as the ice storm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which left a permanent legacy on that Super Bowl. But this one was pretty bad, although it was middle of the week, not the game time itself. The bottom line is we are ready for a heck of a show in all aspects. Before we start with that, and a guy that transcends media as well as Super Bowl, a shameless plug and tease, it's Brad Edwards, who's the athletic director at George Mason, somewhat of a regional star, but also the MVP of the Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins. He's one of the top guys in the history of the defensive backfield of the Washington Redskins. Maybe Darryl Green, maybe.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Mark Murphy, all of those guys have gone on to great things. We'll talk to him. But before we do that, by the way, we'll promote the bigger show, Beyond the Scoreboard, on NBC Washington. 30-minute recap of all the major news events of the month on a quarterly basis. It airs the first week of February. It's airing right now. We get a larger snippet of Brad Edwards, but we also get the context of the news on your television. And we'll talk to him on the podcast. But first, let's give a little bit of love to something that is not necessarily Super Bowl related, although it was mega event related. NHL wrapped up a very successful All-Star break in San Jose. The league and its Players Associations abandoned plans for the next World Cup of Hockey in September 2020. The decision came as part of initial labor talks between the league and Players Association. The current CBA signed in 2013, set to expire in 2022, but both have the choice to opt out of that deal this coming September, which would then see the current agreement terms terminate in September 2020. Both parties, from NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman on down, seem eager to avoid a potential work stoppage like the one that wiped out the entire 04-05 season and lasted more than 3 months in 12 and 13. While international tournaments like the World Cup of Hockey generally well attended by NHL players, last year the NHL didn't send players to the Winter Olympics for the first time in 2 decades, and future Olympic participation on the table during the next CBA negotiations. All was peaceful in San Jose, an incredible event, economic impact. We've covered it wall to wall and will continue to do so. All right, now let's go Super Bowl. First of all, let's talk about the Super Bowl in the community. The companies around Georgia surprisingly kind of shut out of the Super Bowl marketing, Super Bowl 53. Mercedes-Benz, Chick-fil-A, UPS, Kia, Holiday and Parent IHG, Serta Simmons, they're not in the Super Bowl. Coca-Cola on the sideline, at least temporarily. PepsiCo, an NFL sponsor since 2002, for the first time will serve its namesake cola in the stadium where Coke normally holds licensing rights. Pepsi unleashed a blue wave in Atlanta and plans to cover logos on Coke's coolers and fountain machines at Mercedes-Benz Stadium as the deal continues to go. Pepsi placed a multi-story sign across from the world of Coca-Cola, and a local ad states, "Pepsi in Atlanta, how refreshing." Man, talk about a fight. The Atlanta Business Journal also noted one of the more interesting conflicts between Mercedes-Benz and Hyundai. They're the official car of the NFL and the game held in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but the NFL is using an image where it's impossible to see the gigantic Mercedes-Benz logo that adorns several sides of the venue. Atlanta-based Delta Airlines, on the other hand, able to leverage its Super Bowl marketing and branding ties because the NFL does not have an airline sponsor. More to come on this. How about the gambling world? That's pretty unique. Vegas Stats and Information Network predicts more than $300 million will be wagered in the 8 states when the Patriots and Rams collide. It certainly dwarfed anything they've seen in the past, but let's get real. $4.7 billion was bet on Super Bowl 52 last year. $4.6 billion of that illegally, about 97%. That's not going to change. What about when you get in the stadium? Well, the Atlanta Falcons reiterate that food prices remain low for the Super Bowl. Some numbers you don't have: Super Bowl 53, low prices for Mercedes-Benz Stadium concessions. ESPN says the Falcons have reiterated that Mercedes-Benz Stadium will have its fan-first menu pricing in place for Super Bowl 53. Compared to concession prices for last year's game at U.S. Bank in Minnie, hot dog is $4 less expensive. Beer is $1.10 less per 20 ounces. Falcons president and CEO Rich McKay said that increasing the prices based on the magnitude of the Super Bowl, never an option. One concession stand will be closed on February 3, by the way. Chick-fil-A, the home of the original chicken sandwich, will honor its Christian roots. Super Bowl or no. How about philanthropy? Really important. Wednesday night, a huge event, Everfi sponsoring, inspiring and admiring and honoring United Way. And in fact, the longest running collaboration between a major sports league and a nonprofit represents a powerful vehicle for change in communities. The character playbook, powered by Everfi, teaches middle school students how to build healthy relationships and make good decisions. And the Hometown Huddle creates more opportunities for young people to get active and healthy through league-wide days of service and special events at the Super Bowl and other NFL showcases. The NFL also announced the launch of Inspire Change platform, designed to showcase the collaborative efforts of players, owners, and the league to create positive change in communities across the country. With a focus on education and economic advancement, police and community relations, as well as criminal justice reform. And as part of the league's ongoing commitment to social justice, the joint NFL Players Owners Working Group recently approved 2 new social justice grants focused on 3 priority areas issued to Big Sisters, Big Brothers of America, and Operation Hope. Obviously, the platform for the Super Bowl philanthropically bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the way, Verizon, given that context, ought to fall into that category. They are a Super Bowl advertisement with a first responder theme. The ad features 11 NFL players and 1 coach whose lives were saved by first responders. The announcement comes after Verizon received criticism for lowering and slowing mobile data collections and limiting service of Santa Clara County firefighters when they battled California's Mendocino complex wildfire in August. And after apologizing, Verizon said they would impose data caps on first responders no more and will contribute up to $1.5 million to First Responders Outreach, a nonprofit that provides grants for emergency relief, training, and equipment to the industry. The way the donation will be delivered is in dollar increments every time a person posts to Twitter or Facebook using the hashtag AllOurThanks, January 18, February 3. By the way, it's similar to the HR for HR campaign with MLB, and the ad hopefully will help clear Verizon's name while providing others with future disasters with help. So very clearly, the Super Bowl does a lot philanthropically, providing platforms for all, and also giving people opportunity to rewrite and reinvent history. That's where Brad Edwards comes in. He's the 5th athletic director at George Mason, and he came in on July 1 of 2014, a 5-year extension last September. He did a naming rights partnership with Eagle Bank. He's done a deal with Viviture Sports, a training and software company. He gets about $6 million in gifts from corporate donors. He's obviously a major player in the industry of athletic directors. But how about this? He started in that area with University of Jacksonville, an assistant at South Carolina, Newberry College, diversity, commonality, and obviously stepping up as he never did before. But I bet you didn't know this. In 1977 through 84, Mark Murphy was a big hero defensive back in Green Bay, with the Redskins. Then he went to the Northwestern University athletic directorship, and now he runs the Green Bay Packers. Brad Edwards, 1988 to 1997, a Redskin, All-Pro, MVP, Super Bowl, in his 9th season, 122-game career, 589 tackles, but he was drafted in round 2 by the Vikings, and he never imagined an athletic directorship like this. So in honor of Super Bowl 53, in honor of the Redskins, in honor of George Mason, and in honor of the...
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Stepping stone that football provides. Here's Brad Edwards. Rick Horrow, we're here at a Redskins game, a South Carolina University game. No, we're here at George Mason game.
Right.
Brad Edwards.
We can go to Columbia if you like.
No, we're not. We're going to stay right here. Brad Edwards, athletic director. George Mason, thank you very much.
That's great to be here.
Really appreciate it. So,
and I like my alma mater, by the way.
Yeah, and you've been in so many different places, but I know that your alma mater will be back as well. Absolutely. You know, the bottom line from your perspective is a hearty congratulations. You signed a 5-year extension through 2023. You started here in July of 2014. You certainly earned your stripes, but there is a value and a virtue in stability, is there not?
Absolutely. And knowing uncertainty is not a bad thing, and certainly in sports and in life. And so this is an amazing university. It's one of the fastest growing universities, certainly the youngest in the country to be a Tier 1, your top 100 research universities in America. So it's an amazing university in a great area and a wonderful place to live. And it's obviously in the backyard of the place that I had a great experience with the Redskins.
Well, clearly, and you've had the ability to understand sports from a number of perspectives. We'll get into all of them. But let's first talk about the George Mason magic. 4+ years you've been here?
Correct.
$20 million in revenue. You've done a deal with Adidas. You did a deal with Eagle Bank that borders on $15 million. You got nearly $6 million in donations. Which came first? How did it all happen? And kind of give me the chronology.
Yeah, and some of it and to be truthful, is a little bit of low-hanging fruit. I think the first thing that really happened for us was the Eagle Bank partnership, and they had shown some interest before I got here. The sides were way off, and I felt like a middle ground was really a good place to go, and was in my mind and in my experience was probably more fair value. And so I essentially went to the president, said, if I can get get. Eagle Bank makes a lot of sense for us. And this property makes sense for them, in my mind, in this market. If we can get them to this number, can you help me get this through? We have a lot of bankers and on the board and that sort of thing. And so he said, yes, I met with Eagle Bank, and it literally was about a 30-minute conversation. If you'll come here, you have my word that I'll get this deal done. And that was, I'd been here about 6 weeks, and we literally got the deal done like that, and it's been an amazing partnership. And so that and then we just sort of rolled from there.
And sort of rolled from there is a lot of money in a fairly short period of time. And so give me your perspective on raising dollars, raising credibility, raising awareness in a very crowded D.C. sports market.
Yeah, it really is crowded. And but from a higher ed perspective, you got to know who you are, what you add, and the value that you bring to the conversation. And one of the things, we're in a very affluent area, and a lot of money's in business and those sort of things. And for us as a university, what we do is we really are the largest workforce provider in the region in terms of college-educated college graduates and bringing them in the marketplace. So I just think we're able to tell that story and do it really well, what that means, and don't ignore your backyard in terms of, investing in that ecosystem of growth and what that means. 70% of our graduates stay and live within 50 miles of campus. So, what that does to improving the quality of life and prosperity of the region, you really can't quantify that.
Well, let's trace that for a minute. So $6 million in donation. I'm not asking you for a one-to-one correlation, but if people graduate, live in the region, raise their kids here, they're more apt to participate in stuff here, donate here, etc.
Absolutely, and that's and we're, because we're not quite 50 years old as a 4-year institution. It's a lot of our graduates are just now getting into those peak earning and spending years, but they are giving back, and our largest groups of alumni are really our youngest, and so it really is that what exactly what you said, that they're going to give back. They're attached, and they have an emotional attachment to the university.
So your success in dealing with what an AD has to do, a lot of it's based on your, just asking, celebrity as a Redskin, business acumen, prior athletic department experience, or Darryl Green?
All the above. All the above. You have to know what assets you have. You got to bring them to the table. Then you have to hire better people than yourselves. And
he's still faster than you by far, right?
I don't know. I think I could take him now because I could mandate a 5-yard lead by the boss. So where I used to work for Darryl, it might be the opposite now. But it's, I get to walk in with a Super Bowl ring. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I have a guy in the office that has a Hall of Fame ring. Yeah. And is really...
But you tag team very well, I understand.
We really do. And Darryl is... You will not find a better ambassador for sport and for your university than Darryl Green. It's just been amazing.
So, staying in the boardroom, let's talk about legacy a little bit. It's now been 13 years since the Final Four appearance, but when you look at some of the numbers that people tried to quantify that amazing run in 2006, talked about right immediately after a raise of about $100 million more in revenue, 53 licensees from 38, and on and on. What do you feel is the lingering effect of that 2006 run?
It's absolutely brand awareness. And we've had 2 Nobel Prize winning faculty members here at the university, and the president will tell you, and that's important, and we need more.
Did they play in 06?
They if they could have helped us, we would have figured out a way to bring them into part of the conversation, the calculus. But the president will tell you he's amazed at how many times he goes out and somebody brings up the Final Four. It just has that lasting legacy to it, and it had a tremendous impact on the university. We've grown grown by well over 1,000 students a year since that time. So it really has been hard to. The early 2-year measurement was about $700 million of impact. A lot of that media exposure, but in terms of just the brand awareness in our market and nationally, you will never really be able to quantify that.
Some people say you like some moment in time in history, you come in, you ignore it. You would say embrace it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm all about embracing your history, and I think that takes confidence to do that. I think people who run from that, particularly when they come in on the back end of it, are just need to take a little bit of a step back and gain a little confidence from it.
All right, let's talk about the A-10. Since you've been here, the numbers say 11 conference championships, but you have in your information, which I find compelling, 129 Provost Scholar athletes and 251 honor roll awardees. How do you balance academic and athletics so successfully?
Well, we always start with the fact that we're in the education business.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in even sport. I mean, I like coaches. I kind of start out hiring with who's the next Joe Gibbs in whatever sport, because that's what he did. He taught. Dave Paulson's like that. He's a teacher first who's going to teach life, and then it's running. Right behind that is an incredible passion to try to win games and be successful on the court. So it really starts with everything we do, and that's our mission as a university.
And it shows. All right, so segue into Redskins. So it's 98, and you're 54th player drafted by the Vikings?
Yes.
And it's round 2. Did you ever imagine 20 years later you'd be the athletic director at a school?
No, and even more so here, and going back to Darryl Green, during the off seasons with the Redskins, we would come over here and train on the track right outside of our office here at George Mason. The first day that I was at Redskin Park, I was about to walk out the door that afternoon after we had meetings and on-field practice. Darryl walks up and says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go try to find a track." He said, "We all go over to George Mason, use their track, and there's a hill over there," and that's how I got exposed to this place. So there's a little bit of ownership here that both of us enjoy and feel for the place.
Well, you certainly left your mark with the Redskins as well, being MVP, the Super Bowl and all. How did being on that island in the defensive backfield prepare you for life here?
Well, it's very much the same feel. You're on an island as an athletic director, and it's only getting more island.
They don't pay him enough, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a ploy for some more dollars.
Yeah, liability has gone up for athletic directors and college presidents, for that matter.
Yeah, right.
Let me say that much. So, just great preparation in terms of managing, the stress and those sort of things.
So, you're 9 seasons, 122 games, and 589 tackles, by the way, and then you're figuring out your transition out of from NFL, but you're actually doing it in the middle of the time because you're working for Equitable, you're doing stuff for Merrill Lynch and IMI Resort Holdings as well, equity, finance. What gave you the discipline to say, I better start doing this now?
Yeah, I think early on, even in college, I think.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow, the sports professor. We're going to rewind our featured interview, reset the show a little bit, and pick up from there. Here's Rick Horrow.
Director, and it's only getting more island.
They don't pay him enough, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a ploy for some more dollars.
Yeah, liability has gone up for athletic directors and college presidents, for that matter.
Yeah, right.
Let me say that much. So, just great preparation in terms of managing, the stress and those sort of things.
So, you're 9 seasons, 122 games, and 589 tackles, by the way, and then you're figuring out your transition out of from NFL, but you're actually doing it in the middle of the time because you're working for Equitable, you're doing stuff for Merrill Lynch and IMI Resort Holdings as well, equity finance. What gave you the discipline to say, I better start doing this now?
Yeah, I think early on, even in college, I think I had the sort of moment where I just went, I'm really, football is what I do, but I really want to be an investment banker in college, and I saw myself as doing that, and so throughout most of my NFL career, I worked for the Equitable companies in Merrill Lynch, and I just saw myself as doing that in a long term. And my father was a high school basketball coach and a high school administrator, and so I think we had a good, we were well grounded in reality that you're only one injury away from having to develop a new career, and so I just enjoyed business, and I think for me, this role really marries athletics and business and philanthropy in a way that just adds purpose to my life.
But the transition wasn't here. The transition was at South Carolina.
Correct.
And then Newbury,
it was really in college,
and Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's
so. All of those schools, there's some diverse experiences attached to them too. Similarities and differences between all of those schools running their athletic department.
Yeah, and it's just you go from an SEC school where I was a CFO there for several years and a great experience there, and having to compete with the Alabamas of the world to where I got my first athletic director job at Newbury College, where you're trying to figure out who's tearing tickets. Oh, by the way, you are. And I'm working. It was really it was a great experience because of at South Carolina, I really was afforded the ability to bypass a number of steps in the food chain because of who I was and the background that I had, and so going back and sort of having to flip burgers, if you will, at a ground level, for me was very, very helpful, and I think it made me a better administrator.
And you're pretty humble about things, too. I assume you didn't come in reminding everybody that you were the Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
That wouldn't have lasted very long.
No. And or runner-up, and it's because they can point right away to, wow, you missed that tackle. And, and when you've stood next to an official doing this for the other team as many times as I have,
Not much.
You don't have a whole lot of, confidence left. Well, you have confidence, but...
Yeah, well, you have a lot of confidence, and you have a big job. And let's talk just for a few minutes about your perspective and perception of the current state of college athletics. Give me a 30,000-foot general answer first. How's college athletics today?
Yeah, I think and it's very healthy. It's grown tremendously. Obviously, the viewership and the interest in what we do, particularly in major college basketball and college football, has just, it's been a meteor. It's grown so much, and college football is easily one of the top most popular sports now in America, and so that interest I don't see going away anytime soon, and it's fueled so much by the institutional equity and goodwill that institutions bring to it in terms of the name that's on the front of the jersey as opposed to the name that's on the back. And I think for me, I really realized that as a college student that's really what most of these people are coming for, and to see that grow and develop. No, I think it's a very healthy. Education is still at the core of what we do. I think that's when you get into pay for play. That's where a lot of the presidents are of the mindset. While we may be making money, we're also borrowing a lot of money. But if we move away from the education piece, then it's no longer really what we do. So I think that's a big question that's going to get fleshed out, ultimately in courts and others. But I think by and large, the interest is extraordinarily high.
Well, a great segue, because you really can't resolve or get ahead of the court cases, nor can you predict what a judge is going to say or what happens on appeal. Yet, magic wand or prediction of where all of this is going. So let's talk about pay for play for a minute. Does that permeate? Does that only happen with Power Fives? Is there a restructuring? Where is this all going?
Yeah, none of us really know where that goes, other than we're going to just continue to invest in the experience that college student athletes have, and at a high level, Power Five, non-power, where we exist in the basketball universe here at Mason, our athletes they really have an amazing experience. I mean, in terms of the coaching, the academic support, the food, the housing, the travel, everything that you're doing for them, it really is it's an incredible experience, and they get to walk away with a degree. And to me, it's a wonderful ecosystem.
Well, in that context, let's just talk about the things that impact the Dukes and Kentuckys and Kansases of the world. The whole one and done issue. Again, magic wand. It doesn't affect you as much, but it indirectly does. So, what's your take?
Yeah, I think that ultimately, I've always been of the mindset, because I was a pro and a college student athlete. I've always felt like if you're good enough, you should be able to go pro.
Yeah. And after how many years, or just whenever?
I think if you're good enough coming out of high school, you should be able to go pro. Yeah. In football or whatever it is, in basketball, absolutely. And it really affects a few, so few of numbers in college basketball, but we've obviously been Mark Emmert, the rest of the NCAA has been very vocal about the fact that we would hope the NBA would change that rule and allow those young men to, if they're good enough, to go pro. But if you come to college, here's what we do. Yeah. Here are the rules that we play by, and you're going to walk away from here with a great experience and a lot of relationships and a wonderful college degree.
The final basketball question relative to college sports, too, from your perspective, is what is the biggest business issue that you're dealing with as far as NCAA governance is concerned? If it's not pay for play and it's not one and done, what do you wake up every morning waiting to see from the higher-ups?
It's really just we're all kind of sitting watching these sort of cases and how they may affect your business model, whether it's right to likeness or pay play, those kind of things. So and outside of that, you kind of put that on a little bit of a shelf, and then everything else is thinking about access to capital to grow, and how do I find the next dollar to get ahead and compete with in a marketplace that's very competitive.
The beauty of dealing with a businessman first, ladies and gentlemen, and an athletic director second is his segues are so good. He's kind of next asking the question.
I'm running the toss sweep.
Yeah, you are. Toss sweep. So access to capital. Are you ever going to bring in football?
We haven't said never.
Okay.
It's what we can't do or won't do is if you build it, they'll come. Yeah. Or allow it to be a zero-sum game on current resources, with our current capital structure here. So if the resources were to show up in a way that were meaningful, for us, we take a look at it. Football does so many things for an institution. Yeah. I mean, even taking into account cancer research, there are very few things that can broaden a university's base of support beyond its current alumni base. Very few. Football has done that, and I think higher ed really owes it a debt of gratitude over the last 100 years for what it's done from that perspective, let alone the hundreds of thousands of young men who got college educations or college degrees from these very elite institutions where they would otherwise never have gotten in. So it's done a lot of great things in that regard, but it is the upfront costs are, in a industry that's as competitive as telecommunications, as energy or anything else. It is no one's taking their foot off the gas at the highest level.
And then from your other perspective, what kind of obligation or responsibility do you have to field as many men's and women's sports as you possibly can and show a diverse series of options for your students?
I mean, and that's one great thing about what we do is that we are in an arena of diversity where we get to interact with people from all different walks of life, socioeconomic backgrounds and races and places, countries all over the world, and it is something that I've always valued and found very very rewarding. So, we're not at this point, because of our business model, we're not really looking to grow our number of sports. We're looking to make the ones that we have more competitive and provide a better experience for the student athlete.
Good answer, right answer, I'm sure. But the bottom, and that's the only way you could deal with this situation, by keeping an open mind. And I guess the final really important thing that I'm sure viewers are going to want to know, you Redskins, it's probably the only team in the league that has two wonderful defensive backs who went on to be athletic directors at respective institutions, you and Mark Murphy.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, are you a better administrator than Mark?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Was he a better defensive back than you?
No.
Okay. Good. Well,
and then we have Todd Bowles in the middle
by the
of
way.
us.
Yeah. Well, this is going to Green Bay tomorrow. I just want to tell you.
Mark was amazing, and when I got the job here, I immediately got a note from him that said, "When are you adding football?"
Yeah,
Exclamation mark.
I want to play you tomorrow.
Yeah, he's great.
And then the final question for you personally: you've done such a great job here, short term, and then you just signed a long-term 5-year extension. Hypothetically, if an NFL executive job popped up, would you even consider it?
Yeah, I absolutely would consider something like that. But the problem is we have such a great life that I really, within Division I, I have one of the best jobs in Division I because it's a great institution, an exciting institution. While we don't have football, I can go right down the street to see the Redskins play. I'm on the Military Bowl board, so there's a lot of things that feed that piece for me. But yeah, football is something that I obviously know reasonably well. So it's something you keep an open mind, and what's the best interest for you and your family.
Brad Edwards, Mason is in good hands. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, if you want to hear more from Brad Edwards, the full story, you ought to tune in to our full Beyond the Scoreboard half-hour quarterly news magazine on NBC Washington and all of its associated digital and other platforms.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Well, Super Bowl 53, as we said, is upon us. And by the way, if you want to buy a ticket, you do it with the 3D and experience opportunities, data from StubHub, Ticketmaster, and others. A $300 decrease in week one. The median ticket price down 22%, with the cheapest ticket at $3,200. As of the end of the first week, there is an impressive 3D seat view, but the bottom line is, doesn't matter what the seat looks like, you want to get in, and you want to figure out how. And one of the issues you think about, the average cost of a ticket to the past 5 Super Bowls, over $5,100 per person. $5.24 million, the average cost of a 30-second commercial during Super Bowl 53, up 96% since 2008. Ratings up significantly. Prime time ratings for everything other than Super Bowl down 12%. These ratings for Super Bowl ads, not only ratings, but ad time during these spaces. Super Bowl way up, everything in prime time way down. That should tell you something. And according to Wallet Hub, who loves giving us these kind of statistics, and I love hearing them, 1.38 billion. The number of chicken wings being eaten during Super Bowl weekend, plus about 14,500 tons of chips, 8 million pounds of guacamole, and 10 million pounds of ribs. And 1 in 2 people surveyed would sacrifice their vacation days for a year to watch their team win the Super Bowl. And more than 1 in 3 would give up their annual bonus. Well, maybe they say so now, but if the annual bonus is on the table, who knows? The bottom line is, this is a holiday like none other. Watch for people reporting in sick on Monday. I say report in sick. Antacid sales going up. A clamor for a federal holiday going up. And in these days of incredibly unique turbulence, it is good that we have a national holiday that all can agree on. Go Pats, go Rams, go sports business. I'm sports professor Rick Horrow. Speak with you next week.